Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. Welcome to this AM Upskills series webinar. We're going to be talking today about the roles of PR in your clinic and the benefits of investing in PR to support your aesthetic business. So my name's Georgia, I'm editor of Aesthetic Medicine, and I'm joined this morning by two very lovely ladies. So we've got Octavia Coates and Jenny Pabila. And I'm going to hand over to them both in a second when a few more people have just joined. And I'm going to let you both introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about your background and experience, your expertise. And then we are going to go on to talking about the roles of PR, how investing in PR can help your business, and then how to go about setting it up as well and working with your PR and what kind of PR is best for your business. So, that being said, why don't I come to you first, Octavia, and if you can just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your experience and expertise in PR.
Sure. So my name's Octavia. I am the founder of Octavia Coates PR. I've worked in PR now for over 20 years, and I launched my consultancy literally 13 years ago, lucky for some. On launching my own consultancy, I brought together my big agency background with a more personal approach and basically as an individual. And my passion is working with small boutique brands, offering clients a more 360 approach to enhance their business. And for me, that was the perfect progression. My portfolio includes businesses from all areas in beauty, fitness, health, and of course, aesthetics. I've had clients for over 13 years, Nikki Clark, Champneys, and Taylor's in London. Previous clients, I've worked in all areas. And for the purposes of this webinar, previous clients in aesthetics include Dr. Michael Jane and Riverbanks, Pure Swiss Aesthetics and Pure Swiss Boutique, cosmeceutical skincare retailer Skin City. I've launched a range of new devices into the UK market, such as the bionic laser, and as well as a multitude of professionals basically looking to enhance and a direction as individual beauty practitioners. So my current clients include aesthetics expert Dr. Joanna Ward, who also has her own range of skincare and supplements, which is Zenny. So that's just a little bit about me.
Yes, well, thank you. Over to you, Jenny.
Thank you. So I started my PR life actually working for a fashion brand called Mulberry, and I was there for 4 years before I went in-house to Molton Brown, where I stayed for 9 years. And then about 16 years ago, I started working supporting Subad on the Restylane account. And that's where I kind of, I guess, ignited my interest in aesthetics and worked with her across the portfolio of the Restylane KOLs, and then acquired some of my own clients, which ranged from things like Beyond Medispa. I started working with Dr. Prima Vig, who I still work with today, and I've kind of ended up specialising in aesthetics. I, like Octavia, also have some agency experience, but offer the flexibility of giving that almost in-house approach with those external agency skills that we've acquired. And as well as that, when you're passionate about something and you have a real love and interest, you really tend to sort of dig that little bit deeper as well. So, I've worked across a range of things from practitioners to devices. I worked on the launch of the Thermivar a few years ago, and then as well as that, I will work with device launches with some of my practitioners as well. So yes, that's a little bit about myself.
Lovely, thank you. So two really experienced PR professionals here with us today, here for you to pick their brains on anything you want to know about PR for your clinic. So let's talk about the roles of PR in terms of aesthetics. So whether you're a practitioner, practice or brand, I'm guessing most of our viewers will probably be practitioners here, or have their own practices. What are the main benefits of working with PR? What can PR do for these kinds of businesses?
So we decided, because we do get asked this question a lot, and so we kind of we wanted to kind of sort of segment it down a little bit to sort of 3 areas, and then what we'd love to do is take some Q&A. So the first is obviously is reputation. So you have your industry facing reputation and you have your client facing reputation. The second is profit. Obviously we all want to make money, and it's about expanding your client base and growing your business for financial gain. And then the third is really about sort of finding your place, knowing who you are, and sort of streamlining your business. So we thought we'd just literally start talking about those 3 areas, and then hopefully be able to answer a couple of the questions that you have coming in. So Jenny, would you like to start?
Yeah. So, you know, one of the things that Octavia and I have felt quite strongly is that from when we first started off in our PR careers, it was very clear. You know, you were given a brand or a profile and told, right, you need to get features, you need to get press coverage. And I think in the last 5 or 10 years, we've both found that, you know, the role of a PR can actually be much more and can encompass a lot more, especially because we work as a kind of consultant. We have that flexibility to really move into the different areas of supporting a brand or a practitioner. So quite often, yes, PR is about getting press, product placement, or, you know, securing features, but quite often we'll work with the client to identify what their strategic goals are and what would be the most beneficial goals. You know, and coming back to what Octavia said, you know, does it enhance their reputation? You know, some people, some brands want to build their brand awareness, so their profile awareness within the industry, to strengthen them as a concept and to have a brand worth as a perhaps brand ambassador or KOL. We can work alongside them to help them brainstorm and develop article ideas for, you know, contributions, as well as, you know, sourcing and helping them secure speaker positions and activity with different brands. Equally, we can look at them, and this is one of the things that Octavia really specialises in, is that when you're building somebody who perhaps is really skilled but hasn't really exposed themselves, you know, she can sort of sit down, and I've seen that with some of the brands that she's worked with and some of the people she's worked with, where she's secured them columns, or perhaps like a radio spot or a TV sort of expert appearance, you know, where they're sharing their expertise. So things like that can really help enhance your brand proposition. And then coming back to the second point in terms of profit, you know, the bottom line, and especially what's kind of happened in the last 12 months, everybody's really focused on activity and prioritizing what is, you know, we still follow that rule. You know, is it saving you time? Because obviously then you'll have more time to generate income, or is it saving you costs? Or is it enhancing your value? So it enables you to introduce more high value treatments or to launch things that are going to be generating more profit, but without compromising what your brand proposition is. Because ultimately, if you are a medical practitioner, we both believe quite strongly you need to uphold that and you need to be respected. Sorry, this is my baby moment.
All 3 areas kind of interlope with each other. It's a little bit like Tetris, you know, you've got to almost like keep your
Sorry everyone, thank you.
The world of 2020, and you know, and whereas before we'd all be sitting in a lovely little restaurant or coffee shop, now we
I know, we'll have your dog pop up in a minute.
So I think in terms of, you know, it's literally about looking at each level of your business, creating a profile for yourself, making sure that you are utilizing all of what you have to offer, and growing on that as well. And that really is the role of a PR now. It's such a 360 approach. It's so maneuvered so far on from the traditional PR, you know, coverage, column inches, you know, it has to all work together, because to be honest with you, at the end of the day, the whole thing, everything that we're doing as a business, as a PR, as marketing, social media, everything, is all about the end consumer, and it's all about you know, it's all about them. So I think that's, you know, that's really where we are. in terms of what PR actually is now.
I think also one thing that we've both been fortunate about is because we work quite closely with our clients, and obviously we're in a pandemic now, so we're not necessarily going into somebody's physical space, but quite often we will go on site, we'll join the team, and you can spot.
Sorry, Jenny, can you just come a bit closer to your mic? You've gone super quiet.
Have I? Can you hear me better now? Is that better?
Yeah, that's a little bit better. Maybe just speak up a little bit.
Yeah, sorry. I think.
Thank you.
Is that a bit better now? Yeah?
Yeah, that's a bit better.
Okay, sorry. I think it might even be my Wi-Fi. It's been dipping in and out a little bit today. So yes, what I was saying was that because we have the opportunity to go on site and meet our clients, we can actually really look at what their strategic goals are overall for their business and advise what we think will work in terms of meeting their business goals as well, and to make sure that their PR strategy is in line with that.
So what's the difference in your approach if someone was to get in touch with either of you and ask about taking on PR? What's the difference in your approach between if you're helping someone build their profile from scratch, say if they're a brand new clinic, or if your approach is then going to be more building awareness because they're already quite an established, perhaps medical professional, but they haven't actually had PR before? Octavia, what's the kind of difference in how you would then work with someone?
I think if someone's building their business from scratch, you've almost got a fresh slate. And, whenever you're working, which is why I love working with boutique businesses and individuals, it's about finding, your passion, where, what are you really, really interested in? It's about then growing with them. Everything is a little bit like Tetris. So you've got to be excited about something and be passionate about something to really enjoy and enhance it. So I love businesses that are starting out fresh, because you really do have that sort of clean slate as to go and build on those passions and make sure that you're maneuvering in the right way. And if you're working with a business that is already established, that may just need to fine tune. I think, if you have your own business, and this goes as well for me and Jenny, we have our own businesses. It's very difficult sometimes to look, through the wood for the trees. To have fresh eyes and an outside perspective on your direction and your current offering and all of those sorts of things is always a really good thing. And you can maneuver, you can sort of make a little change, take a step back, and it's all about growth. Again, my whole mantra is business is a little bit like Tetris. It's about growing together. And that's, I think, again, what we offer as a consultant, if you like, because we're much more on the ground, we're much more part of the team, and as a business support as well.
And Jenny, I'll come to you with that as well, just about how your approach is different if you're helping someone really build their profile from the beginning versus more of kind of building awareness. Is PR kind of different in those, depending on what someone really sort of needs you for?
Yes, in the sense that, and this is again a question that both Octavia and I sort of discussed, that often we'll get somebody call us or contact us saying, oh, I need PR, and everybody can benefit from PR, but what we like to do is sort of almost take them through an auditing process and audit, where they sit in the industry, how well their profile is, sort of established and recognised, what their profile worth is in the media as well as within the industry landscape, and also, like I said, if they do have business goals, how much in sync everything is across all the various consumer and industry-facing platforms. And then again, being a consultant, you have that flexibility to decide how much of your time you want to dedicate. We are as equipped as a large agency in that, we both have access to freelance designers and all the kind of what I would call, sort of frills that you would, encompass or incorporate in a press launch or any kind of campaign. But equally, what we're bringing to the table is the years of our experience. And as well as that, you have this network of PR professionals like Octavia and I do, we bounce ideas off each other. So quite often you're accessing a wealth of experience. And I think the difference that we perhaps take is that we are almost like looking at somebody thinking, how can we shape you? How can we take you from A to B? What do we think is missing? Where are the gaps? And also, we look at you with fresh eyes and we think, do you know what? Have you ever realized that this is your USP? This is what people really look at and emotively buy into. And I think that's one thing that we forget. Human beings are emotional creatures, and we all are attracted to different things. And the press, the media, patients, clients, your audience, they're all exactly the same. Why do you pick one brand of tomato ketchup versus another? What is it? And that's one of the things that I remember at the very beginning of my career when I worked on the Boots No. 7 brand. And I remember thinking to myself, although it's great working at an agency, I thought I want to work in-house because I want to know, why do people want to buy or spend more money on one brand or something versus another, when actually they both serve the same function? And that's where you're creating a brand identity, a story, a concept, and that's what people buy into. And I always sort of say to people, I can be as effective, or we can be as effective as you allow us to. And we're almost like, it's almost like a marriage in some sense, because they're entrusting you to speak on their behalf. So whether we're, crafting your press quotes, whether we're thinking, actually, do you know what, you're going to shine in this environment, and we're also judging that, actually, do you know what, you should do this. This is something that I know that isn't necessarily your thing, but it's really going to catapult you to the next level.
I think what Jenny's trying to say is sometimes we can see what a brand's USP is, and you might not. And that's basically sort of seeing with the trees. When you have your own company, you are indoctrinated. You are so, you're so busy almost with every element of it. And Jenny and a professional can come in and go, oh my goodness, see something that maybe you're not that confident with, or something that you basically need to be told, and help you to grow those sort of unique areas of your business, and give you the support and the encouragement and the confidence to be able to, to highlight them.
So it's not in the way that PR probably used to be thought about as, well, this is what you're already doing, and we're just going to spread the word and kind of let press know what you're doing. It's so different to that now, isn't it? Because as you say, it's really about like helping someone really increase their business in lots of different ways.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's talk a little bit about, so if you're looking at taking on PR, or you feel like, maybe it's something that you need to be doing, what kind of position would someone first need to be in before they're in a position to really get going? Like, how can they sort of improve that themselves, or get themselves to the level where they could really benefit from having working with a PR consultant or agency?
So this is going into sort of almost the second section, which is about knowing when you're PR ready, and then also what type of PR business do you need for your business. And of course, you've got those sort of, you've got your three sort of, I suppose traditional areas of looking at agency, looking at a consultant, or looking at maybe investing in your own internal PR person, who is obviously primarily and solely under your employment. And I think it all depends on the business. You've got benefits for all of them. Agency will give you a lot of people who will work with consultants, almost have that balance of being much more personal, almost as though you have your very own PR person, but also have the the external sort of avenue. And then you've obviously got your internal, whereby you're employing somebody who is 100% indoctrinated to your own business. And we had this conversation yesterday, Jenny, about how we're going to talk about that. And Jenny came up with some phenomenal sort of avenue areas. So Jenny, I'll hand this over to you.
I think, it can be daunting because PR is a commitment. I think when you do take it on, whichever route you decide to take, you need to be prepared. You need to be very clear about what your PR objectives are, because that helps whoever it is doing your PR understand what you want to achieve. And sometimes you don't really know what you want. You just sort of sense, oh, actually, I need PR. I've taken my business to the next level. And if you think of it kind of almost like a debut or a sort of a coming out, you want to make sure, I think one of the sort of from a kind of a standard rule, you want to make sure that, your brand is ready, that all the kind of outward visual parts of it are all sort of in sync in terms of, your branding and all that. And again, some people bring in a PR at that point to say, can you help me audit my brand to see, is it, in sync across my social, my website, and anything, all the kind of outward facing touch points. But also, coming back to what Octavia said, it really depends on the size and shape of your business. There are things and there are tools out there that you can access. A lot of the aesthetic, larger sort of corporate companies will have a business development manager who has some sort of guide or access to almost like a checklist. So, you can refer to that, and that can often help you work out whether you're ready to take that step. Equally, you could contact someone like Octavia or myself to say, look, am I kind of PR ready? What else do I need to do? I was contacted by somebody during lockdown who said, I'm considering PR. I've spoken to a few other people, and we had a chat, and actually they realized that their website wasn't ready, that the location where they were going to launch their clinic hadn't been built, and they didn't have all their equipment in. So as much as it would have been great to take it on, and yes, we could have written about it, they weren't going to physically be ready for a photo shoot to shoot and give an impression of their brand. So it would, at that sense, at that point, made more sense to kind of wait. So and in terms of sort of, again, in terms of whether you have somebody in-house, the questions you need to ask yourself is, obviously, if you're a multi-clinic, multi-site clinic, and you have the budget, then it makes sense to bring somebody in-house. But then what you have to also bear in mind is that person's role will evolve, and you will need to continually invest in them to ensure that their skills are being continually updated, and they're able to grow with your business. And again, you may decide, I want a large agency because I want a large team, or equally you may want access to people, like a director level, or somebody with many years of experience who is solely steering your campaign. So, there are pros and cons with all of those sorts of approaches. And I think it really comes down to what your strategy and what your objectives are.
Absolutely, and most importantly, your budget.
Yes.
Budget was something I was gonna ask you to talk about as well, because I think that's something that is probably also a bit daunting for someone thinking, oh, how am I going to factor this additional cost in? So, I mean, would you recommend that someone perhaps gets in touch and as a stepping stone to do this kind of audit service, or accesses those tools first to then, before they, will they be tied in normally straight away if they just contact someone for an initial kind of chat or audit? I mean, I know it's going to work differently depending on your business model as a consultant, but
I think that again, the same way that the PR landscape has completely evolved over the last 10 years, so have those areas of commitment. So, I mean, for example, I work with brands that literally want to launch one thing, and we end up working on a 3-month project. The fees are all incorporated. It's all you can. You can work on a retainer. You can, you can dip in and see if it works for you. You're not locked into, to a continuous outgoing. And I think if it's something that you are interested in and something that then of course, when you approach a PR agency now, you can go by a sort of almost like, as Jenny was mentioning before, like a pre-audit. So you can employ a company to come in, have a look at your business, give their opinions on where you need to maybe maneuver, structure, think about change, and then it's your decision. You don't necessarily have to lock yourself into a 6 month, a year contract, which means that you're sort of, you're going in blind. And again, I think the one thing that I love about my job is the fact that you're working very, very closely with a company, and you're in this together. So it's a very different landscape than it was 10 years ago.
And let's talk a little bit about return on investment then, because I know we sort of said that we'd talk about strategy, results of strategy and timings and things. But I think one of the things that people are going to be first and foremost thinking about is, well, how do I know when it's worked? Like, how do I know if I want to then go onto a retainer or work on another project, or, ramp up activity a bit? So yeah, so first of all, why don't we talk about like what's measurable in terms of PR? Maybe thinking about print, online as the sort of main channels.
Okay, so we get asked this question all the time, and I think what you have to do is I always sort of take what I call a layered approach. Every activity that we try to offer, there is a sort of a start and an end point too. So when you're creating PR assets, there's obviously a cost associated with that, but equally it's being used to fulfill, an objective, which in this case would be to secure features or secure product placement. In terms of return on investment, and this is my personal experience of it, you can shoot out emails and you can sell something, but ultimately it's a skill of that PR to identify what is the USP and what is the strength of that person or that brand or that company, that is going to make the press buy into it. And now, in terms of product placement and press coverage, I remember 20 years ago placing a lipstick in the Daily Mail and coming into Molton Brown, and there was literally a queue down South Molton Street, which is ridiculous. Like, who would even imagine, a queue of people? Because obviously you don't do that now, you just go and buy online. But in terms of clinics, what you're hoping to achieve through PR is product placement and online coverage, which will drive footfall. And that's where it becomes really clever, because you'll have your web team or your SEO team or your social media team that are going to be directing that traffic to then lead a potential patient or client to take action. So in that sense, what you're trying to do is get them to, in terms of a call to action, is to lead them to either making a booking or making an inquiry, or if it's a product, to making a purchase.
I think also it's very much, again, like Tetris, at the end of the day, as a brand or a product or a practice, you're looking at enhancing your profile in the right way, and that is going to attract new business and eyes on you. And so, for example, from my experience, you might launch one project, but it might then just lead to new visibility and new interest from the practice or for the business in a completely different area, because it's just highlighting the USPs and the professionalism of that brand. So it's almost like you can't really look at a item of coverage turning into a financial gain. You have to look at it from such a multifaceted sort of direction, and it's about growing a brand together. And I think that's kind of something that you do need to understand as a brand bringing on PR. Jenny?
I know I'm going to bring it back to what you were saying in terms of return on investment, because, you know, if I was a practitioner and I had a meeting with someone and they said, oh, you know, you need to pay a PR retainer and it's going to be X thousand pounds a month, or even if it was a campaign and, you know, it's going to stretch out over 4 or 6 months and this is what you've got to pay, you're still going to want to see something tangible. I think what I would want, you know, regardless, is I would want to have a sort of a defined PR toolkit at the end of it. So press releases, an image library, you know, expert or, you know, advice-based sort of feature-style press releases. I would expect to have some press coverage achieved and some sort of more profiling pieces. I would like to see some activity that would build my profile and showcase my expertise and my skill set. I would love my PR to kind of go out there and say, look, these are associations that we think that you should be part of. These are panels that we'd like to place you on. These are publications where we think you could have a voice, and you would make impact. We think this would open you up to a new audience, which would work very well with your current patient or client base. And also, these are all things that sort of 3 or 5 years from now will really cement who you are and strengthen your brand proposition. So these are all the things that I would expect to see. You know, sometimes, and both Octavia and I have been able to do these over the last sort of 5 or 10 years. You know, sometimes you can get what I would call that kind of golden nugget article where, you know, you place a story. It's sometimes, you know, the position in the publication, the day of the week, it's very topical, and then all of a sudden that clinic or that practitioner is inundated with inquiries and bookings and deposits, and they're like, oh my god, I've paid this device over tenfold. And obviously that is what we want to deliver on a day-to-day basis, but we also want to strengthen who you are, because I think in this industry, especially in aesthetics, you are a medical practitioner. We want you to come across as this authority. And yes, you know, you have this sort of fun element and you have all these other interests, but fundamentally, you know, traditionally in society, doctors have this kind of persona, or this, you know, this kind of position that people expect them to occupy, and that's what we want to do. We want to showcase how amazing you are and how credible and how everything you do is sort of scientific and validated, and there's a real reason behind it. And so we want to protect you in that sense, and that's what our job is, to make sure that we are shining a light on you in the right way, to the public and also to brands and other companies that may look at you and think, actually, this is a rising star. We want to work with them and we want to pledge and invest in them, because I think most people recognize that journey up isn't 5 or 6 or 10 months. It's you know, 5 or 10 years. And what would be amazing is to sort of start with someone at the beginning of the journey and take them and join them on part of it to see them really fly.
And where does social media fit into PR? Like, what's the relationship, would you say, in the landscape at the moment? Because I know some PRs do also offer help with social media, or to completely look after someone's social media account. Is that something that either of you do as part of your offer? Or, you know, if someone wanted to have everything taken care of, or would you tend to advise that a practitioner maybe looks after their own PR if they want to grow their own kind of persona with their brand? Octavia, what do you think about social?
So social media is now evolved, whereas again, you know, 5 years ago, we could look after our own social media, and it's about making sure that everything fits a certain aesthetic. So it really is almost like a shop window for your brand. However, with the back office analytics and how social media agencies have the tools and that back office to really drive a brand, it is now a very separate business. I mean, the clients that I work with, and I'm introducing to agencies that can cover that. I, as a traditional PR, cannot cover that. I don't think even a brand could cover that themselves. So it's very much a specialist avenue. Again, I think if you're setting off as, you know, as a small business moving forward, it's literally about supporting your brand. We can create an aesthetic look and make sure that it's, as I say, your shop window. Jenny, for example, has a lot of experience in this. I know that she looks after a few of her clients' social media windows. But in terms of it being a route of business, the best way to go is through agency, because they have all of those tools to be able to look at it as a separate business to your company.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to add into that. I think when social media first sort of came out, people started doing it themselves. Then it was expected for a PR to do it. I think when it sort of started off, it was kind of quite what I'd kind of, it was almost like that scrapbook slash sort of magazine-y feel. Whereas I think now people want things that are glossy but authentic. I definitely think there is a real benefit to having a digital agency that understand about which posts to boost and what words are trending, what people are searching for. The way that all the algorithms work are so sophisticated now. You almost need somebody dipping into that on a regular basis to continually assess and fine-tune that for your account, because, for example, a practitioner will have one set of rules and their practice may have a different set of rules, and then they may have key treatments that they want to drive inquiries for, which are being carried out by therapists or medical statisticians that work for them. So it can actually be quite sophisticated. Where I think the role of a PR fits into that, and again, it comes down to what your brand is, your brand voice, your brand tone of voice and look and feel, is that we can help create that sort of look and feel of what your social media is, and we can help with the copywriting. I still think it's absolutely invaluable to have your in-house team, people physically working in your business, dipping in and out of your social media, because I know the difference when I'm direct messaging or chatting to somebody and that person is not the brand and it's a third party. Whereas sometimes you'll make a random comment on an account that you like and somebody will come back to you and you can actually tell that they're genuinely happy that you've liked or you've inquired, and you'll engage in a conversation. It's quite interesting because you end up talking to people that ordinarily, if you were walking past their shop front or business front, you may not have kind of walked in and said, hey, I think that's really cool. It's not really what I'm into, but I think it's really creative. Like, how did you create your brand? And all of a sudden you find out things and you think, actually, do you know what? I'm going to recommend this to XYZ because I know that's totally up their street, but not mine. So it's a great way of sort of connecting. But coming back to what you said about social media, you can use a PR, and some PRs have extensive teams that can do all of that, but equally I think there's a real value to using a digital agency.
Yeah, definitely. I think I would probably be inclined to agree, because it's such a specialism, isn't it, with
I mean, it's funny. One of the examples I was given recently is that you can put somebody say can put a quote out or a question out on Twitter, and an agency that's supporting your brand can literally net that and then get hold of them through Instagram. It's another planet. It really is something that I do not want to spend that much time on.
Well, we're going to have to start wrapping up because I'm just conscious of time. If anyone has any questions for either Octavia or Jenny, please do put them in the chat box now. If not, I've popped both of their contact details in there. So phone number and email address for both Octavia and Jenny. So please do feel free to get in touch.
100%. And listen, we all know we're going through the crazy time at the moment, especially, we know we have been for the last year. And I know that Jenny is 100% up for this as well. If anyone's got any questions, I mean, just email away. Be more than happy to support and help in any way we can, and hopefully we'll get through this, this whole situation together and come out the other side smiling, right?
That's the plan. Okay, cool. Well, thank you both so much for joining us. And thank you everyone for watching. And again, please do get in touch if you have any questions. And yeah, we will see you all soon for our next AM Upskills webinar. Thank you both so much for your time.
Thank you very much.